You know, when I woke up yesterday, I was thinking about many things. I was thinking about the amazing story of Final Fantasy VII. I was thinking about Kingdom Hearts. I was thinking about Final Fantasy X and Tidus's, depending on who you are. Journey to Xanarkand. But you know what the real thing was that kept me up at night? That made me toss and turn in my covers, gripping for my stuffies, and sweat dropping down my brow. I think they all should be more gay. Sorry, I was just cosplaying the author of the article we're looking at today. I just thought I would cosplay a little bit here, get into the mind. Have you ever seen Criminal Minds where they're like, we need to think like the killer?
I have now.
I needed to think like,
Yeah, right.
like I was gay.
Yeah.
Which, hey, look, here's the thing. I want to clarify one thing here. If you're gay or trans or whatever you are, I couldn't care less as long as you're a nice person. You leave me alone, you be nice, we interact respectfully, and we're both just people. But when it comes down to media interpretations and people putting their own story off on other stories, it is something that I want to talk about. And I know several creators have already talked about this, some of them being more considered politically charged creators a few days ago, but I wanted to kind of weigh in on this conversation of this article from The Gamer, a website that I think has been increasingly inundated by bad takes in recent months, with my friend Nate here, and we are huge Kingdom Hearts fans going all the way back to the original game. Now, did we write them? No, but I think even we can look at these stories and understand that it is not because of compulsory heterosexuality that the stories are the way they are. And that's what this article is basically arguing from an author that I do ask you not to contact because it doesn't do anything, and I think it's not a good thing to do, and a lot of times it's what people want, is to kind of get a faux harassment so they can look good. So don't contact this person. They might be nice. I have no idea. But this article, Sora doesn't understand love in Kingdom Hearts, and it might be because of compulsory heterosexuality, is probably one of the most bizarre interpretations of Kingdom Hearts I've ever read, and very clearly is informed by personal life experiences, which is fine, but to then put it on the story and say, I lived my life this way, therefore the story is me, is not really how storytelling works. So, we're going to take a look at this today. I do have a question of the day for you. Do you even think stuff like this matters? Because 99% of the time I think it doesn't. Romance can be written very poorly. Either way, whether it's straight, gay, whatever. But I think in general, in recent years, we've seen a much less subtextual approach and a much less, thoughtful approach to ideas like this, and a much more heavy-handed, we missed out on so many years of storytelling like this. It needs to be like this now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a true example of a self-insert.
Yeah.
Which we see a lot of, in media nowadays. There's a lot of people that I feel think of media properties not as that thing, but they think of it as, I want to be in this thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to enjoy this thing because I'm going to insert myself into it and feel like I am part of it, instead of just enjoying the thing.
Well, and I think that there's room for some of these things, when Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, he did want you to understand the journey of the hero and try to live your life in that way. There's ways to do this, and there's ways to look at Luke Skywalker and view yourself I want to be like him, but I think
insert yourself into it is the problem.
The opposite is where it's I want Luke Skywalker to be me.
Right.
That's different
so
than
I'm
I want to be like him.
interpret the story of Luke Skywalker in my lens.
As me.
And it's that's not what it is.
No.
This is a story of Luke Skywalker, or in this case, this is a story of Sora, whatever. It's not the story of me.
Right.
I'm the player. I'm just experiencing Sora's story. Sora is not me.
If anything,
I understand that, but a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, if anything, Sora is closest to someone like Tetsuya Nomura.
Right.
Who actually wrote the character and tried to look at...
But Sora could also just be Sora.
No, 100%. So, I'm just saying, he might be informed by real-life experiences, but he'd be informed by those of the author, not random person on Reddit.
Right. So the article kind of goes into a little bit here. It says, right off the bat, Kingdom Hearts does not explore love and romance very much. Sora never really mentions or comments on love either until Kingdom Hearts 3.
Which, by the way, real quick, I think this is kind of wrong.
Yeah.
So Kingdom Hearts 2 focuses a lot more on love, which there's several moments where like Sora is like thinking of Kairi, or he inserts his idea of like, oh, that reminds me of Kairi. Even with Donald and Goofy saying, oh, we know, you know, like what you're thinking about type stuff.
Well, and this article, I think, even understands that too, because down, if you go all the way to the bottom, they talk about like the Pawpaw Fruit stuff in Kingdom Hearts 1, you know, all this stuff like throughout the games.
Yeah, and they mentioned too, but it's weird to say that like it wasn't mentioned till 3,
right,
but then go on to later say how it was mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
He's like, yeah, he's not commenting on love. Like, the guy isn't Dexter Morgan.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a consistent inner monologue going as things are happening. He watches characters. Like, in Kingdom Hearts 2, when he watches Belle and Beast, he's not like in his head like, here's my commentary on love and Freudian ideas. It's just he's respectfully there.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he has to make a commentary on it.
And that's kind of what Sora's character has always been. Sora's character has always been one that interacts with the Disney movies and properties and the characters, and he helps them along the stories. Usually it's the story that coincides with like the movie story. Doesn't always have to be, but you know, a lot of times it is. Yeah. And Sora is kind of just there.
Well, and you know how Nomura referred to him? He referred to him as like a uniter of characters.
Yeah,
he's like the threads lead back to Sora. Yeah. In a way, him and his heart and the way he's touched these lives connects all these people.
Right. So he's not, I mean, he is the main character because you're playing as him, but in the context of the world, like for example, in the Beauty and the Beast world in Kingdom Hearts 2, from your perspective, Sora is the main character because you're playing as him. But from that world's perspective, Sora is an outsider who is interacting with Beast and Belle and all them. And he kind of observes and helps out and facilitates their story. But to sit around and act like Sora has to like comment on love and all this stuff is kind of silly to me, because
anything.
Yeah, because he's just watching it.
Right.
You know, he's watching Beauty and the Beast dance and stuff like that. And it does even make like a comment here, which I actually kind of appreciate. They included a little picture from the character files, like the Kingdom Hearts character files, which we both have.
Yeah.
Where he is commenting on them dancing and is kind of thinking about what even is love, you know, all this stuff. Like he's asking these questions. And that's kind of what this whole thing is talking about, is Sora is asking questions about what is love.
Not to be mean here, if you are a teenager watching this, what 16-year-old has fully figured out love? You know, I'm 30.
What adult has fully figured out love?
A lot of people get to their end of their lives. I would argue no one ever fully figures it out.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a very complicated thing, but I mean, you could go to people in their 80s and they might have misinformed ideas or different ideas or whatever than someone in their 30s. I mean, obviously, if he's 16, he's in a period of self-discovery. So in that sense, I understand why people bring up homosexuality, because it's a period of self-discovery.
Yeah.
But, like, I would argue that the way that they're going about this is very clearly an insert of this person's life, which I kind of wanted to get to as well.
But, yeah, it's like, and that's kind of the thing, is like, clearly he doesn't know everything there is to know about this, which is okay. You know, I mean, what teenager, kind of like you're saying, what teenager like really understands this? Sora's life, it kind of started out in, at least from what we have seen in the games, started out in Kingdom Hearts 1 with him and Riku kind of both crushing on Kairi a little bit. You know, and then Kairi was taken from him, so, and Riku was too, so then he kind of spends the whole first game hunting them down, trying to find them, whatever. And he kind of briefly gets reunited with Kairi, but then, you know, they go separate again and whatnot. So I would make the argument that Sora's only real experience with love is just crushing on Kairi on the island a little bit when he was a little kid.
And then he's seeing all these things as he travels.
Yeah, and then he's trying to spend the games getting her back. And in the meantime, he's going to Beauty and the Beast world, he's going to Wonderland, he's going to all these different places.
Yeah, Frozen.
And Frozen, and he's helping these characters out, and he's observing them. So it's like, just because he's questioning what is true love doesn't exactly make him some, what's the word,
sexuality questioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Individual.
It just means he hasn't had a full experience. Like, he's not hanging out with Kairi all the time.
Well, and I wanted to point out a couple...
He's probably not thinking about it.
No, and I wanted to point out a couple passages in here, because, like, I mean, mainly we've been going off of, like, one paragraph and the headline so far, but something that they point out from the character files is talking about, you know, Beauty and the Beast and saying, like, oh, what is true love, like you mentioned. Then the article writer says, well, they're a man and a woman, they're in love with each other, what else is there to get here?
Yeah.
Well, love is a lot more complicated than this. Like, if I broke down homosexual love in this way, it would be very demeaning.
Mm-hmm.
If I just said, well, they're two men, they both like penis, what more is there to understand here? It's like, that's such a shitty, like, surface level breakdown of what love is.
Yeah.
You know? Or like, if I looked at two brothers and I said, well, they're just related, what more is there to get here? You really, that's the whole concept of brotherhood to you?
Yeah.
They're related, what more is there to get here? There's a lot more to get here.
Mm-hmm.
They go on to basically say, that's what our heteronormative society wants everyone to think, and then they talk about their own experience as they grew up, and I don't mean to be disrespectful of their experience here. Like,
right.
You know, you are who you are, I don't care. But saying growing up as a deeply closeted lesbian who didn't even really know gay people existed until I was in my teens, not knowing what love is or what I should feel like, talking about watching Disney, and like Sora, seeing these couples fall in love, but something wasn't clicking when I watched them. I'm more open to this idea than you are, Nate, in terms of like interpreting things through your lens.
Yeah.
Because when I went to school for literature, one thing they do is all these people argue. They argue you have to look at things through an objective lens, ignoring the author and ignoring your response and just trying to get the facts. There's an argument that you have to look at it through the author's lens, specifically of their life, what they were saying, and that's all it is. And there's also like a reader response extreme. I'm talking extremes here, where you are the reader and it's like whatever the author said, they can piss off. It doesn't matter. What the facts are, kind of, but you're interpreting them through your life because it's your life reading the book. And if it doesn't resonate with you, what's the point of the book? All of those extremes I personally disagree with. You know, like I've always thought all three can intermingle. Like you can have your life experiences and you can read subtext and you can think about things, you know, and you can make an argument for things. But then I think if you're ignoring the facts and you're ignoring the author intent to do that, I think that's wrong. That's what I think this is. I don't think this is like reading the facts, reading where the author came from, and reading your life. I think all three need to exist. And then saying, okay, well, what's going on here? I think this is, I'm going to disregard the facts. I'm going to disregard the author, Tetsuya Nomura, whatever his intent was. I'm going to disregard Japanese society, which has very traditional, but also like ever-changing views on same-sex relationships. You know, I'm going to ignore all those things, and I'm going to talk about me. I was a deeply closeted lesbian. This is my story. I'm Sora. That's what I think this is, and that's why I completely and fundamentally disagree with it, because it's ignoring any other perspective to only make this your perspective and to insert as Sora instead of seeing what similar traits do Sora and I have. It's just I lived this life in an entirely different universe and world than this character. So therefore the character is like me. I don't really, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good way to apply reader response, is to be like a reader response extremist. I've never liked that. And I see more and more of that because of postmodernism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, postmodernism in literature, it pushed the idea of like, well, the author can never really communicate what they are and what they want anyway fully, and I'm not the author, so let's just throw that out. No, let's not throw that out. It should at least be taken into account. But it's not being taken into account here at all.
No, right. Yeah,
that's my literary major rant here.
It's just
Sorry.
like, it's just what they're completely doing is just saying, I went through these experiences. I noticed Sora has a somewhat similar, experience that he did.
Very tangentially similar, barely
right,
similar,
exactly.
but yeah, sure.
So therefore, it has to be the same. And it's like, well, maybe he's just a guy who never really was interested in love, in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the other thing that's important to know is love, in a sense, has multiple meanings to it.
Mm-hmm.
Love doesn't just mean, like, romantic love. I think Sora mainly deals with friendship kind of love in the stories.
Maybe brotherly love with
brotherly
Riku.
love. That's always been his thing.
And that's kind of my issue too, is I think that whenever you do this, if you break it down this simply, I think it can be kind of disrespectful to different forms of love. If I wrote this article and it was about Korra from Legend of Korra, and I said she never really understood love because she ended up with a woman. She ended up with a woman, and therefore, like, she doesn't really get it. She'll figure it out. Yeah. Now I sound like you're going through a phase boomer.
Right.
Like, it sounds very disrespectful and disingenuous.
Yeah.
And I'm just putting off, like, me being straight on that. Like, oh, she'll figure it out. She'll find the right guy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe she is into Asami. And maybe, because in that story, this character ends up with a woman.
Yeah.
And maybe that's fine for the story. Maybe,
I could change her, but yeah.
Yeah, right? That's like the Mickey Rourke comment. Did you see that?
I did.
Mickey Rourke's comment to...
It's insane.
Who was that to again?
That was... it wasn't Jojo Siwa.
It was
Jojo Siwa? Okay.
Yeah, making jokes about that.
Yeah.
Like that kind of insane mentality.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like we look at that and we scoff at that mentality. We say, hey, just because you're straight doesn't mean that character is. Well, just because you're gay doesn't mean that character is. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's the truth.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's just kind of my problem with this article, and also my problem with a lot of modern day society, because I've seen this in other things too. This is not the only time I've ever seen this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people like to disregard intent of author.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, at least in the last 10 years. I've begun to see this.
Ever since the end of World War I, it's been a thing, but it's been much more
very prevalent.
Signal boosted on these media websites.
And I think it's really because a lot of people are lost in their own lives. A lot of people have gone through a lot of trauma, or at least
would you say they're going through a phase?
They're going through a phase, whatever. But a lot of people are searching for answers. They're searching for connections.
Mm-hmm.
They're searching for whatever. And instead of seeing stories and taking pieces from that and applying it to your own life, they try to take their own life and apply it to stories.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the opposite of what you should do.
Well, and I think it can work in small doses. Like,
sure,
I think you absolutely can do that reader response of, like, I've lived this life, maybe this character has a similar thing. You can do that, but, like, if you override every fact and every author intent to do it... Nate, did you ever read The Color Purple?
No.
It's a very literary acclaimed classic novel.
Okay.
And it deals with same-sex relationships of a woman who ends up liking another woman. Now, if I look at that book and I say, well, looking at this through a straight lens, maybe she doesn't really like it. Okay, I'm overriding the book.
Yeah.
I'm overriding everything around it.
Right.
And that's my problem. Like you said, it's like you're not doing this in a healthy way. What you're doing is you're saying all of this material has to fit me.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's kind of the problem here. That's not what this is.
Mm-mm.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
it's. I guess my big thing is why does everything have to be like you? I don't mean that in like a rude way, but
no, you don't even mean that to just gay people. You mean that to anybody.
I mean that to anything.
Anybody.
Like I can, like if I watch, I don't know, like The Lord of the Rings, for example. I can watch the Lord of the Rings movies. I can see Aragorn and Gandalf and Frodo, Sam, all that stuff. And to me, I look at that and I go, hey, none of these people are like me. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. They don't have to be.
Or what about Black Panther? You can look at Black Panther and you can get the hero's story. You can get who you want to be.
He's not anything like me.
No, but you can see similarities too.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
I can take character qualities of T'Challa and say, I want to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that is fine. Like, he's very protective of his society, his community. That's a good quality.
He's heroic.
He's heroic. He's a very honorable person. You know, these are all qualities that you can take from T'Challa and say, hey, this guy's nothing like me, but I kind of want to mimic those. I don't get why we can't do the same with Sora. Like, Sora, a good quality with Sora is take care of your friends. Take care of, you know, have brotherly love. That's what Sora does. Goes to all these different worlds, he interacts with new characters, he makes friends along his way, and he cares about those characters. You know, he doesn't just blow everyone off, you know, and just say, oh, Hercules, I don't really care about you. No, he cares about Hercules. Sora goes back to Olympic Coliseum multiple times throughout the series, and he interacts with Hercules. He wants to protect him. He wants to take care of him. He helps him out. He's always ready to jump in and, like, help things out if Hercules is, you know, dealing with Cerberus or whatever's going on here. These are good qualities to take from this. He doesn't have to, you don't have to look at this through a queer lens.
No.
That's not what the story is.
Well,
I know you want it to be,
yeah,
but it's not what the story is, and that is okay.
When you were kind of pointing out the Paopu fruit scene, too.
Yeah, right.
There's a little more with that if you want to talk about that for a minute.
The article does go into talking about the Paopu fruit scene with Kingdom Hearts 3, and basically how Sora and Kairi, they share Paopu fruit together, which is kind of a thing dating back all the way to Kingdom Hearts 1, that Riku and Sora were basically fighting over. It's kind of like a testament of love, if you will. Yeah, and sharing this fruit together and so on.
You were arguing, it's like, okay, so if I win, I share the Paopu fruit with Kairi, and if you win, you can name the raft the N-word if you wanted to. Right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, exactly.
It was something like that, right? The amount of unhinged screenshots I've seen naming the raft, by the way. So...
Yeah, and then it talks about how when Kairi presents the Paopu fruit, Sora physically recoils, and Kairi has to explain that she wants to share it so they won't be separated in the final battle before Sora relaxes and finally accepts.
No, he's just he's surprised.
Yeah,
he doesn't recoil out of disgust or upsetness.
Right.
He's surprised. And look at this. So, there was a line up above that we moved past where basically it was just talking about, like, the first thing he thinks of is, why is Riku all alone?
Yeah.
And then at the end it says all he can do after sharing it is look visibly uncomfortable. Yeah, you know why? Have you ever, and this could be if you're gay too, by the way, have you and your friend ever liked the same person?
Yeah.
And one of those, like, and maybe your friend ends up closer to that person than you do, whether they date or not. That's uncomfortable for the other person.
Oh, it's very uncomfortable.
And it can be uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far into this, Nate, but you had a situation like this where the woman you ended up marrying, we had a friend who also was interested in that woman, and it caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, it was very awkward.
Made it awkward for everybody. It didn't mean you didn't love that woman.
Right.
It just meant you were also like, I feel bad for my friend, and my friend is sad. These two things can exist at the same time.
And it was also very weird if I was with, you know, what is now my wife, and my friend was there too. It was very uncomfortable.
Because you knew
everyone.
He liked her and had a little bit of jealousy of you.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, that's also, Riku is finding his place.
Right.
You know, Riku needs to find his place. Sora asking, does his place have to be alone?
Yeah.
Isn't the same as Sora saying, man, I think I like guys.
Right.
It's just not the same.
Well, and the article, just to kind of, you know, the last thing I want to point out here, it does say, Sora's behavior in the scene reminds me exactly of myself when I was 15. I could daydream picture the heterosexual life that I thought I was supposed to lead, but the mere possibility of anything happening beyond that, absolutely not. And then basically they go on to say that they felt like they should have had a heterosexual life, but that's not what they were in.
Right, they felt pressured.
And that's fine. You know, that's a life experience that this author had, and I'm not taking anything away from that. But again, like we said, that life experience does not have to be what Sora is. Sora is visibly uncomfortable because Riku also likes this girl that he likes, and here they are about to, like, share this pow fruit, which,
It's basically like
they're about to like bone, each other right now, like right on the beach.
Right, okay.
And Riku's like over there watching, and he's not a cuck.
He feels sad for his friend.
Yeah.
But he's also happy to be with this girl, and he's trying to figure out what it means. He's trying to figure out why he likes her so much.
Well, yeah, because the last time he really saw her, they were both like 12
14
or 13,
14, yeah,
somewhere around there.
And you have to remember too that Sora was forced to grow up via his experiences of leaving Destiny Islands.
Right.
So like he didn't really like sit around thinking about love before this. He thought of adventure.
His mind was not on contemplating love. His mind was on, I need to save Kairi and I would like to get Riku back. That's what his mind was thinking about. And adventure. And helping out his friends he made along the way. So now when he's finally back together with Kairi in Kingdom Hearts 3, this other dude is over there who also likes Kairi. It's just kind of a weird situation.
And it's one of his best friends in the world who he risked his life for.
Right.
I mean, this is literally...
It's kind of just a weird situation.
Right, and I've seen a lot of people read into the Riku and Sora storyline with homosexual subtext and stuff, and I understand that when you have two boys and you have love, there's going to be questions.
Yeah.
Especially when they're teenagers. And I'm not taking away from that either. However, I do want to propose an opposite. Whenever there are two boys that are close now in media, there is a subset of people who think they always have to be gay.
Right.
And there is such a thing too as brotherly love. There is such a thing too as like, I would die for you, but I don't want to have sex with you, or I don't want to kiss you.
Right.
But like, I would lay down my life for you because you matter that much to me. It's a different type of love. The same way.
Well, just ask any soldiers.
Yes.
With people in their barracks and their platoon, their guys that they hang out with, they're like thick as thieves.
And there might be a couple that are gay, but that doesn't mean they're all gay.
And those people would literally, they wouldn't even think twice about dying for the person next to them.
Right.
That's a kind of love.
But they don't daydream about kissing them.
Right.
I mean, maybe some do, but like it's not all of them. And that's my thing with Sora too, is he did go to war.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fought battles. He's fought in a war here. I think to disregard all of these things and to disregard different types of love, I think is disrespectful in the same way that I personally think that if I were to interpret Korra and Asami this way as, oh, it's just sisterly love, I think that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very clear that the author intent and the story subtext goes beyond that. So to override that completely with my own experiences, instead of to also incorporate my experiences into the story, which I think, again, you can do to a healthy level, and I think that even more than you do, and that's fine. That's why people have argued about this for centuries. But I think whenever you go to an extreme with your interpretation, which I believe this is, I think that you're doing a disservice to the literature. You're doing a disservice to yourself, too, because there are stories that are much more like you. You don't have to go to this extent to make one like you. They are out there, no matter who you are. To me, this is Ryan Gosling stars in Black Panther 3 levels of self-interpretation. Like those memes. Like that's what we're going for here. And I don't really understand. I feel like this is just a mandated Pride Month article.
It kind of feels that way. But like, it doesn't feel like there's any substantiating evidence or anything like that that really jumps out at you and goes like, oh yeah, I can see. That's not what I'm getting at here.
No, and I actually have seen a lot of interpretations through what I would call a queer lens that actually do make points.
Right.
About like characters that are left up in the air.
Yeah.
In It Chapter 1, the film, I think a lot of people who didn't read the book, and had ideas, they could see some subtext of a couple of the kids being gay. And then there were other people who were like, I don't know. And then later on in It Chapter 2, it's like kind of confirmed.
Yeah.
And my point is, like, there were people kind of like thinking about it at that point. They were looking at, maybe we're getting a little too unemployed here because we're like really diving into that story. But there were people thinking about it and saying, okay, well, here's some facts from the story. Here's some ways characters act, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure there would have been someone who said, hey, you're self-inserting. But then it ended up being right.
Yeah.
So it's like you can think these ways, but they should be backed up by something in the story. And the vagueness of this could be applied to just understanding love in general. You know, as someone who my dad died, I still kind of figure out things about that love after he's gone. Of like, oh, he meant this, or this is why I felt this way about him. That doesn't mean I have a sexual attraction to my father. Now, again, this is not to discount that, like, homosexuality is obviously a thing, and there are people who are in love and are gay. It's just to say that there are these different forms of love. And to discount all of them for the only amount of love that matters in this story to be yours, when it's not really supported by text, I guess to me, that's my problem with all of this. And I didn't want this video to be this long, but it's a very complex issue. I genuinely don't want to be disrespectful of the issue because, like, I'm not here to say, like, if you're gay, you're wrong or something. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, that's not my point. My point is, like, how do you get this out of the story? That's my issue here, not who you are.
Right.
My issue is the story and the fact that we have to discount so much to land on this interpretation.
And that's kind of what I was saying before. Like, a lot of self-insert has been the case recently. It's been the case for a while, but at least I've noticed it recently. And I've noticed a lot of people want things to be the way they want it to be, as opposed to just what it is. You know, which is kind of a problem, and that's what this is. This person went through these life experiences, which is fine, and now they're noticing maybe like a thing here and there or something, and their interpretation is, this is like me. It's you want it to be like you.
But also, I have a question to kind of close this out. Does this matter? No. Does Sora's love, whatever form it's in, if your love as a lesbian woman, and this is to the actual author or to anyone, my wife is coughing in the other room, if your love is just as valid and you have experienced this form of love, and love is love, which is the thing I always hear, why does it matter? Like, Sora's love is just love.
Yeah.
To you, your love is just your love, right?
Right.
So why does it matter? Why does Sora have to be like you? You both feel love. It doesn't matter who it's for. Again, I will clarify here. Unless you're like a pedophile or a zoophile or a necrophiliac.
Like it's a zoophile.
Someone into animals.
Okay, that's what I was
figuring.
Bestiality
person.
Got it.
You know, unless you're like into something completely immoral and wrong that cannot consent.
Yeah.
If your love is just what your love is, isn't it enough that you and Sora both feel love? Find the commonality there.
Right.
And when a character's love is for a boy, and I'm not gay, I can still understand love because I experience love.
Yeah.
That's enough. I can look at Black Panther and I don't need him to be white to understand the qualities of heroism.
Right.
I understand the qualities of heroism. This is my problem, is like, you're reaching so far for the specific to be like your specific that you're missing the fact that the overall thing is just like yours. It's just in a different specific. Isn't that okay?
Yeah, I don't get it, and I continue to ask this question. I just don't understand. You know, I'll go back to the Lord of the Rings example. I can enjoy Lord of the Rings without, like, let's say I was gay. I could enjoy Lord of the Rings without like Aragorn being gay.
Right.
Aragorn doesn't need to be gay for me to enjoy Lord of the Rings if I was gay in this scenario.
And if he was gay, he wouldn't be any less of a hero.
No. I can just look at Aragorn and watch the movies and understand the qualities he has, and that's okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of our...
Rant?
Yeah. That's our issue with this.
I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. Obviously, whoever you are, as long as you're respectful and with consenting individuals who can offer you consent, I couldn't care less. Do what you want. But this kind of thing is just very prevalent. So let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed today's video, you want to leave a like, subscribe. This was a very long one compared to our typical videos on this channel, but one we wanted to handle with safety gloves, not with mallets, hammers, and anger. I do like your feedback on this stuff. Also, we have another channel, which is Degenerate Plays, where Nate and I have played through some Kingdom Hearts games. We played through 1 and Rechain of Memories over there. We had a great time, so we'd love to see you there. We kind of do things podcast style there, hanging out, talking like this while enjoying the game with you, so we always love seeing you there. And we do have our own store, cosmobunny.shop, my wife and I, where we make coasters, keychains, trays, and more out of recycled paper. So what we do is we repurpose comic book, manga, magazine, and more paper that has been damaged, that is not sellable anymore by stores. We'll either get them dirt cheap on clearance or sometimes even for free. And what we'll do is we'll transform these pieces of art and change this paper into something new for your home. So we appreciate you very much. Hope you'll check that out. Discount code DJAY123 will get you 10% off your first purchase there. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shway.